Just want to welcome everybody to Eastside Cultural Center. I just want to let you know that this program and the beautiful exhibit next door was put together by our beloved Roberto Martinez, who had a little family emergency and he had to fly to LA today. But I'm just here to introduce our wonderful panel, people we dearly love too, and Annette Oropeza. Annette Dolores Oropeza is originally from East LA and has been living in East Oakland for over 45 years, where she has been a community activist in the Fruitvale district. She retired as a mental health coordinator for the Oakland Unified School District and now spends her time making jewelry, beautiful jewelry, we've seen that, singing in a band, and caring for her 5-year-old grandson. She's one of the founding members of the Fruitvale History Project, who collaborated with Eastside to create the exhibit next door and also the publication. I did want to say that Eastside Cultural Center, if you haven't been here, has been around by next year, it's going to be our 25th year. We started out by doing the Malcolm X Jazz Arts Festival in San Antonio Park and have done it every year since that first one. And after the second one, we decided to become an organization, you know, a bunch of artists, and we thought, oh, we should really do something together. And we became a collective, and eventually in 2006 moved into this building after a lot of struggle with many politicians and our Oakland folks saying, oh, you're a bunch of artists, you can't really do this, but we did. So now we want to have cultural centers in every neighborhood. We really believe that's important. And it's the artists who make that happen. So without further ado, Annette Dolores Oropeza, thank you so much for moderating this panel.
Hi everyone, and thank you for coming to this very special panel discussion. As you can see, we've got some of our artistic and movers and shakers up here of the Chicano movement. And I'm very pleased to be moderating today because every single one of these people is very special to me as well. There's another person who's very special as well that couldn't be here today, Irene Perez, and I'm representing her though with one of her t-shirts, okay, that she created the design for. And let me just tell you briefly about her since she couldn't be here. Irene is an artist and co-founder of the Mujeres Muralistas. She grew up in Oakland, an experience that shaped her politics and creative work. She studied at the Academy of Arts in San Francisco and at the San Francisco Art Institute. As a co-founder of Mujeres Muralistas, it was a collective of women which challenged gender expectations and machismo within the Chicano art movement. Unfortunately, Irene has COVID. She wanted me to tell you how much she is going to miss being here today, and she also wanted me to tell you to wear your masks. She really did say that, okay? So that's why I was wearing mine. Okay. I'm going to begin with some introductions, and I will start from the far end there. Andrés Cisneros-Galindo. Andrés, yeah. That's his wife. Andrés Cisneros-Galindo is a multidisciplinary artist and educator whose work is marked by a strong sense of history, a commitment to community organizing, and experimentation. Germinating in the 1960s from the leftist politics of his native Tijuana, Mexico, Andrés' work took root in the Bay Area's Chicano movement of the 1970s and through the decades has pursued an exploration of the Chicano experience. Originally from Baja, at age 14, he joined the studio of Héctor Castellón in Tijuana, Mexico, where he studied painting, drawing, and sculpture. Andrés moved to the Bay Area in 1967 to pursue his passions, education and art. He graduated from Cal State University Hayward with a degree in early childhood education and completed studies in printmaking and painting in Mexico. Cisneros-Galindo's experiences in education range from lecturing at a Mexican university to directing the bilingual Centro de Infantil program. Specializing in printmaking, Andrés draws much inspiration from Mexican and indigenous iconography. In 1983, he founded Taller Sin Fronteras, a printmaking collective. As a printmaking teacher, studio manager, and artistic director. His art has been exhibited internationally. His most recent Bay Area at the Richmond Art Center was extraordinary, an incredible success, and if you missed it, I'm really sorry. Xochitl-Nevel Guerrero is a painter, muralist, and mask maker. Her first art mentor was her artist, activist father, Raimundo Xochitl-Nevel, better known as Sala. She painted her first mural, Nosotros Venceremos, in high school. She has since dedicated her life to creating and teaching in the fine arts. She attended Laney College and received her bachelor's in fine arts degree from Cal State East Bay. Together with fellow artist Esther Hernandez, she assisted in the painting of the Mujeres Muralismos mural Latino America in 1974. While studying at Laney College, she joined Mecha and has also been a member of the Fruitvale-based Teatro Triste. Xochitl's artworks are inspired by her dreams and Mexican and indigenous cultures, interweaved with social and political justice themes. You can often find her up on a scaffold or selling her prints at Oakland's Indigenous Red Market. Her murals can be found throughout Oakland and the Bay Area, including her most famous, I think, mural, La Clínica de la Raza on Fruitvale, named A Vision of Our Ancient Ways, Healing the Past, Present, and Future, which she created in 1977. Leslie Lopez, affectionately known as Dime. She is a visual artist born and raised in Oakland, California. She's well known for her funky graffiti letters, unique hand styles, and cultural work. She has a passion for painting in the streets with community and creating beautiful yet powerful public art in the barrio. As a matter of fact, when you step outside, you'll see her work right across the street in that huge mural, and also all along the side, this mural to the end, to the corner. Those striking colors and beautiful images. That's Leslie. While studying, oh, wrong page. Dime comes from a humble, hardworking family whose parents migrated from Sinaloa and Michoacán, Mexico. She was introduced to murals and graffiti at a young age, and her work is heavily influenced by her upbringings as a first-generation Chicana, her Mexican culture, and her life experiences as a brown girl growing up in East Oakland. Many of her collaborations are painted with children, youth, and elders, and are seen in walls in the Bay Area and beyond. While staying true to graffiti, her first love, she's dedicated to bringing her style writing to any service centering joy, love, and the fight for social justice. Dime is a founding member of Few and Far Women, a member of the Bomb Squad Kings, and part of the collective core of EastSide Art Alliance, where she developed her commitment and love for serving the people. Last but not least, my friend to my left, always on the left, Malaquias Montoya, was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and raised in California's San Joaquin Valley. Malaquias received his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in art from UC Berkeley in 1969. He has lectured and taught at numerous colleges and universities in the Bay Area, including Stanford, and the California College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland, where he worked for 12 years, serving for 5 years as chair of the Ethnic Studies Department. Since 1999 to 2010, Montoya held a professorship at UC Davis in the Department of Art and Chicanx Studies, and continues as Professor Emeritus. In 1968, he co-founded the Mexican-American Liberation Art Front, Malaquias, with Manuel Hernandez, Esteban Villa, and Rene Yanez. Malafe was the first collective to discuss the very definition of Chicano art. He helped to develop several talleres gráficos in the East Bay. By the early 1970s, he had formed his own taller de artes gráficas in the Fruitvale community. He lived and worked in the Fruitvale community from 1967 to 1984, creating posters that depict the strength and resistance of humanity to injustice and the necessity to unite behind this struggle. Malaquias lives in Northern California with his lovely wife, Leslie. He has 5 children, 12 grandchildren. You can find Malaquias' posters and artwork everywhere from the Fruitvale community to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Okay, we have an applause for all our panelists there. Okay, and I printed everything out except my questions, so allow me a moment.
Just freestyle.
Okay, we're going to keep this quite casual, and I'll let anyone who wants to raise their hand answer this particular question to please do so. But if nobody volunteers, then I'll have to make a choice. Okay, first of all, I'd like to ask the panel, who or what was your inspiration to pursue your artistic endeavors? Who would like to begin? Andrés, I see your hand up.
I can see 2 hands.
Oh, and please use the microphone.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Who or what was your inspiration to pursue your artistic endeavors?
I didn't have anything better to do, probably. What do you?
El micrófono aquí.
Oh. I don't know, it was just something that came out, and I started drawing and painting and tearing political posters back home when I was a kid. I walked around with a marker, the ones that were used to mark cans of food, and put an extra mustache here, nasty word hair there, and I probably just be nasty, you know. That's how I started developing a lot for art making and causing problems at the same time. So it's,
Good trouble.
yeah, good trouble.
Leslie, would you like to answer?
Yeah, for me, I was always really loved colors growing up, and I was always in my own world coloring, and obviously walking down the Fruitvale, seeing the big, beautiful murals that were everywhere were really inspiring. But in my own practice, nothing really drove me but myself, I guess. It was like my escape. And I first started doing graffiti. That's my early beginnings, and so good trouble, you know, tagging things and walking around the neighborhood. And as I got older now, what drives my art is really the love that I have for it and the outcome, the change that it creates. So if telling a story with my artworks has someone feeling in the most great place or closure or happiness, that's kind of what fuels me to keep going and keep making art. I don't see it as like, oh, my next phase is gonna be this. I kind of go with the flow, you know. to stay true to myself and to my craft. I don't let it drive me, I guess, in sourcing.
Xochitl?
Hello. I was thinking of something.
Hold the mic a little
Closer? Okay. Well, besides it started with my father painting oil paints in the house. And I used to watch him and work with him and draw with him and stuff like that. And also, my father being from Mexico, and he really got us all involved in doing ballet folklorico, getting involved with art and music and stuff like that. So that's basically why it got started like that. And then in '67, I think it was, there was a house called La Causa. And so my sister had a friend that was part of that, so they took me over there and said, oh, they're gonna have a Chicano art show, you know, for youth. So they got me involved in that, and that's kind of how. But before that, it was like my father and other family members that were into art and music and dance and all that.
Your turn.
It's interesting, the first time I met Xochitl was at the exhibition at La Causa, that Malaquias show that was mentioned earlier. And she was just, I guess, about 14 at that time. Here was all these older guys, and here was this young lady exhibiting, which I thought was really neat. Later on, I met her father, and I could see where the influence that he had on Xochitl and other artists along East 14th, including myself in discussions with him and life of the community. But, and I'll bet you I forgot the question. What was it?
What inspired you with your artistic endeavors?
Well, I think my mother had a big impact on my life as I grew older, but from her early upbringing and what she was, our house was always beautifully decorated, even if it was una carpa on the camps, a boxcar, an old dilapidated house. And we'd all go to work and we'd come back and the house was transformed into a house. It was beautiful. You'd come home from work and you'd feel really good about the place that you lived in. And years later, we were picking walnuts, and it was a really casual work day, and I asked my mom, si estábamos tan pobres, if we were so poor, where did you get the money to decorate our homes the way you did? And she said, well, mijito, growing up, I used to go up into vivíamos en casas de adobe. We lived in adobe homes up in the mountains above Albuquerque, and I would go up the mountains, and I'd find this big rock that was white, and I would bring it home. And I said, what was it called? She said, I don't know. It's una piedra blanca. And then she said she would mash it up and add a few things to it, and then with that she painted the entire inside of the adobe house in white. So what she was making was something like gesso or primer. So she would paint the entire house in white. And then the different colors, which were just beautiful earth colors and beautiful blues. And she said, with that I would take a bunch of old coffee cans up, and when the arroyos would go down, the creeks would go down, I would scrape, it would expose a lot of different layers of earth. And they were all different colors, and I would scrape into each can. The ochres, she didn't call them ochres, she didn't know what eran amarillos and los rojos and these colors, and I would bring them home. and she would put different berries and things in it, but she'd make her own paint. Big gallons of paint that she would make. She would take all winter doing that, and then summertime is when she would paint. So she would, with a sheepskin, she said, I would take that and paint all the rooms that were going to be ochre, the ones that were going to be this colorado that were supposed to be red, but it was a really different red. It was a real beautiful red. She said I would paint those, cuartos amarillos, and she said sometimes the colors, I didn't have the right color. If I wanted like a green, she said I'd go with your dad, we'd go to the dance on Friday nights, and I would keep all the crepe paper. And I would bring the crepe paper home, and I would put it in different buckets. So the blues, she'd have a bucket full of blue water, a bucket full of red water, and with those she'd tint the colors that were in the big 5-gallon. So the greens, the yellows became green, or a tint towards green by adding blue water to them. And so with all that, she was able to mix all these wonderful colors. And then what I was getting to was because I had just started how to silkscreen, learn how to silkscreen in San Jose, and I was curious about the motifs that were up around the wall, and there were pajaritos, little butterflies, little designs that she had done, and I wanted to know how she did those, and she says, well, your tío Andrés had, when he would come down to visit, he would bring a bunch of inner tubes that had been blown out, and I'd take all the inner tubes and he'd cut them into squares for me. And then I would, on those little squares, I would cut out little butterflies. I would cut out little flowers and pajaritos and the others. And then she said I would glue them to a piece of cardboard. Mind you, she was making cleaning blocks. And with that, she would put the paint on the block, on the rubber of them. My wife keeps going, put your phone on. And she would, along with the ceiling and the wall mat, she would print all the way around. In the kitchen that I thought was wallpaper was the actual tire threads from tires that had been abandoned. She would have them cut, and with that she would dip it in the paint and then just go step and repeat, step and repeat, step and repeat. So she had these beautiful designs. She created the designs by the way she manipulated the block or the printing. Yeah. And with that, it got me so excited. But by this time, I was already 27. So, like this should have happened when I was real little. But I got inspired by other things. My brother was an artist. The way our house was decorated was an artist. The way I'd see my mom decorate the house. So all those things impacted me on being an artist, becoming an artist. The type of artist that I turned out to be was, I realized that art was another voice that I had. And that voice spoke, I think, better than I did. And with that voice, I was able, which was my art, I was able to speak about things that I was either too timid or too ashamed to say in public, but I could create a piece of artwork that addressed people. And people could look at it and say, oh my God, look at that. That's about this, and that's about this. So I could use that voice in a very wonderful way to bring about change, and people would notice them. Instead of me having to stand on the street corner and preach, my artwork did that. And I'd have them all up and down the streets. Every time I'd go by and I'd see somebody standing up, oh great. They're looking at that poster and it's registering in their mind that terrible things are happening in Argentina and that somehow this country is responsible for it. And that was a wonderful thing that I was able to do with my art.
Malaquias, that brings that. Yes, give me pause. That actually brings me to my next question. My next question. How do you think your art intertwines and expresses the Chicano movements? Once you got involved in the Chicano movement, how did your art transform into that?
Well, I think that art becoming another voice and being able to speak much more intelligently, I think, than I could. I was able to speak through that about conditions that were taking place in our own bodies, that we were not addressing ourselves, either we didn't know how, or we were not awakened to the fact that we were being oppressed in the community that we lived. So through artwork, I was able, I think, to reach people, to do images of, I mean, even just looking in the eyes of Zapata as you're walking down the street has an impact on you. When all we had was the billboard signs with puros güeros, all Anglo people, that were trying to sell us something. And then and hoping that my work or other artists' work would cause a rejection of that the people looked at it and no longer said, I need that. What I need to do is understand where we're going, what I'm going to do. And that was how my work became. And I started to realize that it was having, people were listening to that. And that was good.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Xochitl, how does your okay, or whoever, how do you feel like your art expresses the conditions or the ideals of the Chicano movement?
There's a lot to say. I'm one of those people that I also didn't do a lot of talking, but everything that I felt was in my work. So what I did was I got in this theater group and I was shaking and scared, because I said, oh, I got to get up on the stage, I don't want to do that, I'd rather be in the background doing the backdrop or mask or whatever, but I did it and they couldn't get me off after a while. Sometimes I had to end the, like have the last word and everybody's still like, come on, say something, like, oh, okay, and then I said it, but I think by getting into art, it helped me to take challenges and, try to do other things than being too safe or, and let the challenges, take me to wherever I needed to go. There was a lot of different types of art I did too, other performing arts, visual arts, and so I think all of them kind of helped me, to get out into the movement. But being in the movement, I helped out with a lot of different things, or people helped me. And there was, that time in the 70s, there was a lot of things going on at the same time. It's like a renaissance, and people were going to marches and rallies and all kinds of stuff. So there was a lot for artists to do anyway, and there was a lot of work for visual artists and performing artists, like teatros. Like I was in this Teatro Triste. It was like a street theater, and it was up to like 50 people, young people in there, and it's where if some of you know where the Clínica de la Raza building is at, that used to be an old church, and we used to practice in there. And we go to like events against the war, against the draft, in Vietnam, and just different events. Issues like with Los Siete and all these other things going on at the same time. So there was like the performing arts involvement, and also doing artwork, exhibiting artwork that represent Chicanos, Chicanismo, and so also there was Get tongue-tied. I have so many thoughts, you know, a lot of things that I experienced throughout the years. And, but I feel empowered, and I feel, I mean, I taught kids too how to, you know, do art. And, I mean, I didn't teach them to do art, but I gave them a safe place to do art and to help develop them. And I did a lot of years in Fruitvale, on Fruitvale Avenue, and yeah, so, but I'm still doing murals and still painting and all that. And 2013, I started my little business. It's called Taller Xochitl. So I continue to do art.
For me, you repeat, yeah, can you repeat it? Yeah, yeah.
I think I lost,
Mic check.
you're okay, your mic?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I don't need it, go ahead.
Okay. So how does it?
How does your art express conditions or the ideals of the Chicano movement?
My art. When I first started,
A little closer.
when I started getting politicized and organizing when I was 13, 14 maybe years old, right in the Fruitvale. I was already doing graffiti by that time, but it was very much about me and my own world. So being introduced to this whole theme and world of like political art, the Chicano movement, build my identity as a Chicana. It taught me that word Chicana, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm Chicana. I'm Chicana with the X. I was maybe like 14 years old, you know, a little Gigi girl from Fruitvale, not from Fruitvale, from Oakland. But it was really inspiring, and I took a lot of what I was learning and made connections that were outside of just myself. I made connections with different people in my community that were not just Chicanos. Made connections with people overseas. We talked about different struggles and how we were all impacted by the same things. So I started applying that to my art as I continue to practice it. And at the time, it was just graffiti. So I would include like Mexica Grecas, and that was my way of like, yeah, that's who I am. I'm Chicana, and I do this. You know, it's kind of funny when you think about it, but it was really empowering, and I really rolled with that. So as I got older and I started learning more things, I applied different concepts to it. Made it more political graffiti pieces, and then started doing murals and applying some of the elements into that. If it's talking about palabra, if it's talking about even our own medicine that we were using at the time, you know, how do we connect to our roots? Like all those things were really impactful, and they were now being translated into different elements in my art. And so yeah, that was learning from that. The Chicano movement then was really inspiring, and I continue to carry that. As sometimes I get the opportunity to travel and to showcase my artwork, my identity is really strong and bold, and I feel like I want to showcase that. And I know I keep referencing graffiti because obviously that was like the root of what got me doing community murals and building in my neighborhood to other neighborhoods, to other areas of the world. But I feel that it grounds me. And in taking those teachings and applying them to my work all over the place is really powerful. Not only as a woman graffiti artist, but as a Chicana woman graffiti artist. Growing up, like, there wasn't that. It was mostly white women. So I really wanted my identity to shine through that. And I wanted to show other brown girls out there that it's okay to come out, you know, that we're out here and we're kind of doing this kind of work. So yeah, that's it.
to 67 that I came to the Bay Area. So that in itself politicizes you. So I work in farms and ranches all the way to Idaho, I think. Most of the time I was lost. And then in 67 I have to move to anywhere but home. So I came to the Bay Area in November of 67, I think. I came to Oakland. At the beginning I worked around Jack London used to be where all the trucks with vegetables and shit came to the Bay, to the area. And, you know, it's a bunch of us, of kids of 21, 22 were working, downloading those trucks. And then somehow in following year in 68, I enrolled in Merritt College. I have no idea how. I was in Merritt College when I had the misfortune of meeting Malaquias, Montoya, and Manuel Hernandez, and who else? I remember, but so I don't remember if it was with you or with Manuel, was you, that I learned to screen print. I don't have any posters from that period, but I found one in this little book here. I said, oh, that's mine.
Will you show us? Did you tag it?
Oh, thank you. This little one here, you can see it after, was with paper, done with paper, paper stencils. It was a Chicano conference in 1969 that was one, first we had one in Merritt College, when Merritt College was Merritt College in the flatlands, before they moved to the fancy stuff over there. And then the second part of the conference was in Denver, at the Crusade for Justice with Corky Gonzalez and company. So it's there, it's here. That was, I think that was my first poster. And from there on, I continue working on screen printing and woodcuts. But most of the work from that period is in somebody's collection, I hope, or you know, in the garbage can. The Chicano Student Union convinced me also, and they know they get involved in most, and not only local and national stuff, but also at international level. In '68, the big La Masacre del Tlatelolco in Mexico City happened. I was already here, so you know. News were coming little by little, first with like 300, 400 dead, and then we realized there was more like 3,000, 4,000 people that died or disappeared. And then further increased my politicization, which I was already.
A little closer.
Huh?
Put the mic a little.
Closer.
I also think it helps, because there's a little bit of feedback, but I think if you hold it straight, it helps.
Yeah, might be a good idea to take it to the machine. But also, La Causa, I believe Armando Valdez was the director. Is that the same one that we're talking about? I had my first exhibit there with Rene, and I can remember who else, probably Malaquias and Manuel and Esteban.
Rene Yañez,
Rene Yañez.
Jose,
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Were you there? You were the token woman, probably. And the rest is history, you know. Since then, I've been involved in different issues.
Thank you.
Donation.
Okay, let me start with Sochi this time. How has your experience in the Fruitvale helped shape your artwork and practice?
How has it shaped it? Um, well, all I know is I felt like that's where I was supposed to be, in a sense, you know. 'Cause there was a lot of organizations being, coming together and all that. Since the 70s, a lot of the organizations were being founded. And so I just felt like I was supposed to be there. And then plus my father was doing a lot of the art too. We were doing art together. He set up also well actually even before that, I like to say that Malaquias was my first teacher in screen printing in the 70s, in the early 70s. And so with that, my father and I were working on some, he set up in his garage, silk screening setup, and we were doing posters and stuff like that. Sometimes in Fruitvale or for Laney College, different events there. I also work with like the Unity Council and Spanish-Speaking Citizens Foundation. I was there for like 7 years, working with children, and I thought I wanted to have a safe place for the kids to work, because it was really hard, sometimes for kids to find a place to be creative. And so I used to have art classes after school. And sometimes I had an outreach program, going to some local elementary to high school classes in mural painting. So I developed a lot of things like that for the kids, mostly the kids. And let's see what else. I was there a long time. I mean, I'm still there sometimes and still working on murals. The Clinica one I did 3 times. I worked on 3 times, from 1977, 1999, and 2014. And it changed a little bit, kept changing as people were coming and going. And also, I worked with the libraries, the Cesar Chavez Library. I worked on murals there, and this other Casa Che, they recently asked me to work on a mural there. So it seems like I always have work around Fruitvale. Presently, I'm working on a mural in actually San Francisco, Balmy Alley. So I'm more open now to work in other places, but Fruitvale, I think, brought me a place to go to myself and learn and teach, and especially pertaining to our Chicanos and Chicanas, and sometimes they come years later and they say, hey, I remember when you were working on a mural or you were teaching art classes, and thank you very much, or my kids are interested in art now, so that really helped. And but also getting back to the whole thing of the movement, like I said, there was a lot of different activities. There's a lot of things that do, a lot of struggling and fighting just to get a lot of these organizations in Fruitvale, mainly. And I was there. I didn't always talk about it, but I was there, helping support and sometimes I was asked to make signs, hand signs or help with people, and I was also a Chicana, so I mean, it wasn't always easy. In the 70s, women didn't always have, weren't able to be empowered. We had to kind of do it ourselves or help each other because women were still getting their hands dirty. They were still in the kitchen. They were still taking care of kids, and so being able to go to meetings. I mean, I never had kids, but I saw a lot of these women, my sisters and other people, they had the children, so, but also they found time to go to meetings and stuff like that. So it was hard on women, but they stuck it out, and so when Leslie was talking about, her being Chicana, and I think that's great to be able to say, hey, I was able to get to this point, go beyond, because when I was growing up, it was much harder. You were still, don't say nothing, or, let me do it, And so that's something that we weren't able to do certain things, but I feel grateful, still that I'm still alive, I'm still here, and I help whoever needs help. I'm still open to help people that need help, or so yeah, that's about it.
Malaquias, so what do you think it was about the Fruitvale that just inspired you and got everything going at the time? And
Well, I think that for me, the Fruitvale community for me was like a home. It was like a family where there was a lot of love, and that just sort of gave me warmth, gave me a place that I wanted to be all the time. And what a better place to be is where there's a community that are all understanding about what it is that we need to do. And I had a talent that could help, and that was making posters, and it was something that I enjoyed very much. I enjoyed doing artwork that was not just trees and oceans and mountains, but this was something very, very different. And I was able to make a poster attractive enough that some people did want to hang it up in their house. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that I was able to contribute to that part of the community, because it was certainly giving me back a lot. And that's what it is.
I feel the same way, like it's home, my dad came to Oakland in the early 70s, 73, I think, is what he told me. I don't know if that's all the way accurate. But I feel like when my parents first migrated here and came to lay roots, it was in the Fruitvale. And I'm just imagining like all the challenges of like a whole new country, millions, it feels like miles away from your hometown and you people and a whole other language, and you have to navigate that. And you're raising a family there now. I'm trying to think of like my mom a lot and how she went to so many resources on Fruitvale to navigate this country and to raise her family here and to empower herself. And in doing so, was walking with these little kids and catching a bus, and we were just looking around and feeling inspired by that, and her not knowing that, And now that I'm older, I see it in that way. Of course, there was like, damn, we gotta run for the bus, or damn, 3 minutos, okay, rápido, córrele, that's what you think about then. But like now that I'm older, I'm like, damn, like it like shaped me as a whole human to do what I do now. From her being able to talk to different people about everything she needed to go, where's the next place, or what are we doing next, and organizing in some capacity, to making sure her kids were set, you know? And they were being inspired and learning from her how to organize, how to do community murals without her actually painting. It was like gathering people and communicating. It was like those skills were kind of grounded with us when we got there, you know? So I feel it has a huge impact in my life and how I move. Being able to also be in the neighborhood with my children and raise them in Oakland, and it's really special because I feel like it's a lineage of like generations, like past and moving forward, you know? And creating artwork now where you know your neighbors and people come out and feel inspired and feel beautiful and feel seen when they walk past the beautiful colors. Because no longer is just 1 or 2 murals on Fruitvale, or 3 or 4, or artwork on the windows, or your posters on the walls. Like now it's like completely erupted to the whole city, which has been like a beautiful way of seeing it, like as this legacy, you know, continues. So yeah, so that's kind of how I've been feeling, really. All my feels. Thank you.
Andres, would you like to respond to that?
What do I have to?
How the Fruitvale community in itself, how that kind of inspired your work.
Well, everything happened.
Hold it, please. Yeah, thank you.
In this area, when, let's see, somehow I ended up living in Fruitvale, not Fruitvale, 35th Avenue. I have to bring Xochitl. It was, is that all right? It was, I'm not going to say what I usually say.
Sounds like a private story.
A group, actually the people that gave me a ride from Tijuana to the Bay Area were living on 35th Avenue in a house owned by Xochitl's grandparents. And that's how I met Xochitl. So, you know, I was in Merritt College in Grove Street, or Martin Luther King now, and commuting to East Oakland, to the Fruitvale area, to 35th Avenue. And from there, you know, I can't remember if we were organizing the Chicano Student Union in Merritt College, creating a Chicano studies program in Merritt, where it's like Malaquias, I don't remember, Roberto Pérez Diaz, etc. A group of Chicanos came to teach us not only history and art, but also philosophy, etc., etc. From there, we went to Cuba, a group of us, in 1970. Came back all hot and bothered, all politicized, full of energy at the time. Well, 22, 23 years old. You are there. And we put together a group, IMA, Instituto de Investigaciones de México y Aztlán, which is a full mouth of words. So it came out to Comejas. IMA became Comejas at this point. And it was, the front was that we had a monitoring service. We monitored seven newspapers, I can't remember exactly. My resource person is there. And from there we organized different organizations, or we were part of different organizations. And the one that I was involved was Centro Infantil de la Raza, which I became a teacher, then the senior teacher and then the director in the last year that I was there. So, my background is as a teacher, and I don't realize that until, and I continue being a teacher, I still teaching. What was the question again? Natasha?
Fruitvale.
Fruitvale. Oh. Oh, how I shape Fruitvale. Way around this. Yeah, it was a good marriage in Fruitvale, with Fruitvale. And, I believe that the organizing the day, El Día del Barrio every year for I don't know how many years, since 1971, 72, I don't remember. It's also, in a sense, it used to energize you, seeing all the people involved in it. With the only thing that was down from us was the organizing because we didn't have any money. So it was, and Malaquias' posters, of course, that are there, most of them, I believe. I can't remember what it was. There's more or less, the Fruitvale is in me. You cannot take Fruitvale out of my whole being.
Malaquias. Yes. Why do you think art is so important to a community?
Well, Chicano art, I think, is very important to a community. A lot of art is really just meaningless. It has nothing to do with your life, with that around you. It's just something to look at, something that might go into a museum or a gallery. But as far as reaching the people, it doesn't do that. And I think Chicano art, in its when we discussed it in the early days, that's what it was intended for. To actually reach a community and talk to them. And I think that's very important for a Chicano artist. And a lot of people disagree with me. I never intended to exhibit my art in galleries or a museum. That wasn't why I was doing the artwork. I was doing it for them to take home and hang it up. And every day they get up and look at this poster that's talking about something that's taking place here on Fruitvale, in Mexico and Central America and Africa. And it's something that people can learn about, because on television all you see is advertisements. Movies, unless you know what movie you should go to. So I think that's why art for me is important for that community. Yeah, I think I forgot the question.
Xochitl, little bit different because you have done many of the murals, small and big, in this community, and I see the women that you convey, women of many colors, women of spiritual. And tell us a little bit about what you're trying to convey to the community with your murals.
That's a good question. I think when I started doing art, there was like different directions to take. I think first of all, for me, art was a healing, a way to heal myself, because a lot of the things I had gone through, and it helped me to empower and kind of transform, and heal myself. So being a woman, and I know a lot of times some of them weren't empowered, so that was a way to empower them and show women and children and families and stuff like that, and showing the culture, how important it was. And I think what got me inspired to get back into the inspiration was going to Mexico, and I saw like the beauty, but yet the suffering and pain and all that. And so all that inspired me as well, you know, besides out in the, you know, in the Fruitvale and at home and stuff like that. So I was inspired again by my father's, you know, art, because he was from Mexico and he did a lot of images of people from Mexico. And so I said, why, he did a lot of male figures, you know, and so I said, well, I want to do more female, you know, and showing them strong and beautiful. And so that's why I did that, you know, show the emphasis, but also I had gotten also having a lot of accidents, and so I started getting into doing self-healing, you know, learning different methods of healing. So I used that to as a way to create my work and to go more inside of myself, to find images and enter dreams and all that. So that's how I gather that information and images and stuff like that. But it's still cultural, it's indigenous. So that's, I couldn't really get into the because I could say that a lot of these things that are happening, all these wars, and I feel really sensitive to that, and I really, you know, I have done work that showed that struggle and fight, but it's hard for me to really get into that, so I try to show a different side with color and images of Native people and, you know, the roots and all that, so I take it a different approach. So that's how I do it.
Leslie, you mentioned how you started off as a graffiti artist, and I really appreciate that you brought that up, because a lot of people think of graffiti as scrawlings on buildings and, oh, it's, you know, kind of not aesthetic and it's, you know, ruining the landscape or whatever, but that some of the graffiti artists are just, I mean, you're artists, right? You're natural artists and you have a talent, and that you really went beyond that, and you know, and you build it up, but you still honor those roots. So can you talk about that a little bit? How art, you think your art is important for the community?
Yeah, I feel that it kind of all branches out from that, you know, as far as like for me, graffiti was like an underground, not respected art form. And it's just, in many ways, it can be misunderstood, you know. And then I shared my experience of getting enlightened and inspired by all these teachings that I was having at an early age, and how that helped morph my content that I was using my graffiti for, and switched it over and now doing mural work, right? So I feel that they're both hand in hand. And a lot of muralists that I know today and a lot of artists that I know today, that was their first kind of vision of art. I mean, if you think about it and go back, some of the first graffiti you would see as a child and art, it would be in the bathroom stalls, you know, and it's like A plus B, or so-and-so is this, or so-and-so is that. So it's kind of like your first introduction to it, without us knowing that that's kind of where it is. But as the years have gone on, I feel like now it's become more accepted and there's more outlets to branch from graffiti, when before it was just like, don't do it, stop it, close it, take it to the train yards, I don't want to see it in the neighborhood, you know? So I feel like it's a balance of, now there's so many avenues that are being branched out, and kids that are doing graffiti in the beginning are being offered like, hey, check this out now, or being exposed to other mediums, which is like amazing, you know. And I love that graffiti will continue to stay, you know, to some rebellious way, not permissional. But I also feel that there's a responsibility with that in making rebel art, you know. A lot of prints and things that got put up and the way that people got to listen to us in our posters, in our art, in our banners and everything was because it was rebel art. So it kind of falls into that pool. And now, as I've continued to do both, and I'm really inspired with murals that I'm doing now, they're all rooted in working with many of the kids that are growing up doing graffiti. So then they get that appreciation of like, well, you just want to be a part of something. Literally, they're either fighting to stay alive, going through some crazy thing, and it's just, you just need somebody to lend you a hand to be a part of it. And I feel like with the murals, I mean, the murals, el muralismo es de la gente, you know? We do what we do, we leave it on the street, and it's on the people that live there to either respect it or not, you know? Sometimes a lot of the murals or graffiti is getting painted over when it has a message. So it's like, in that way, it's kind of getting flipped the other way. It's not graffiti writers tagging on stuff, but it's actually people just whitewashing art, you know? And it goes back to like Siqueiro murals being whitewashed and, you know, and that kind of thing. So I think there is a balance to it. And there's a really special kind of route that you can go on if you approach it the right way. I feel really honored to be able to do both, like I said, and to have streamed from that and continue to do it, but also bring people together to transform entire buildings that were, you know, trying to lock kids up and bring them to be a part of it. And now they're a part of their neighborhood, they're keeping it safe, they're helping, you know, the store owner make more sales because now families want to walk through there. They're helping kids feel like they can walk home from school. And it's like a whole kind of transition and, I don't know, cultural plaza that comes out of that, kind of in a way. But yeah, did that.
Andrés, your artwork is very, or to me, very exquisite. It's very ancestral. There's something ancestral about it when I see a lot of your artwork, a lot of Guerrero. What are you trying to, what are you hoping the community is going to take from that?
Or
Let me
roots.
go.
Sorry.
You have to have roots, you know, especially for us in the city, you know, those roots have to continue going deeper, and the plant has to go up and produce seeds, and drop again and continue that cycle of life. And I use my native, the native heritage that I have in order to pass information alongside. What else? What was the question?
What are you trying to convey to the community with your art?
Yeah, this the main thing is your roots. That's where you start. That's what you know, what keeps you going, and translate those roots into what we are becoming little by little, as the Chicano, the Mexican community, or the indigenous community. That part of us has to continue being part of us, you know, regardless of how advanced the civilization or the present, or not advanced the civilization, but it doesn't matter how the new digital, whatever you call it, how you call it, the whole technology is taking trying to grab you somehow, but those roots have to remain, has to be there in order for us to survive.
someone wanted to say to wrap up. I didn't ask that somebody else made you think of, and then we'll open it up for questions. Malaquias? Oh, yeah. Anybody else?
When I arrived to the Bay Area, Pinky the Vaca, Chicano, was killed by the police.
Technology again. Pinky the Vaca was assassinated by the Oakland police, and there was a continuation up to several black and Chicano kids were killed by the police, and that was something that waiting for your turn. Actually, if I can say that. Forgot his name. Benavides. Marlo Benavides, and I can't remember who else. Yeah, it's many, and my mind is failing me at this point.
It really moved me when Malaquias was talking about what influenced him when he was growing up with his mother and creating a home and all that. And I heard, I think part of that story at the Oakland Museum exhibit in one of the recordings that you did, but this that you talked about today was a little more, went into even more detail. But the other thing that, if you could tell the story again about the, what happened in elementary school in terms of how you ended up kind of going towards the art. And, because to me, it sounded like everybody, when the question was, who influenced you, it all came from within. From within and from, your environment when you were younger. So I wondered if you could just give that story again about your classroom.
I come from a farm working family, and if you're in the Central Valley, we pick everything from grapes to peaches, plums, cotton. But it was the grape season, late August, September, when school started in most places. And we always started school late, simply because our parents needed our help out in the fields as long as we could be out there. But so a lot of the Mexican American kids and Afro American kids were put in these special classes because we were so far behind school, and in fact, the other kids would tease us by just telling us that we were in the MR classes, the mentally retarded classes, and a lot of people did refer to those courses, to those classes, MR classes. So I felt like I was going to learn a lot there, and my mom was also happy because she said, "Mijito, now you're really going to learn. We're going to teach you and pay more attention to you." But we never did anything in that class, other than she would bring in boxes in the morning and put them on a big table, and we would just go and grab colored paper, crayons, and pencils, and go back to our desk. And then from morning till noon, we just colored, cut out paper, and glued them together with another one. And as time went on, I would sit around and doodle with a pencil and draw, and I would look at some of the kids and draw them as funny animals or something. And then the kids would say, "God, look at Malaquias' work. Malaquias' work is really good." And then little by little, that started to really make me feel good. And it was sort of like it gave me some kind of sense of confidence that I was good at something. So all I was doing was drawing, and And you stayed in that class until you were 13, at the age that you didn't have to go to school. And unless you got out, if you had some kind of talent, they would take you out and put you in the next grade, the 4th grade. And because I could draw so well, they moved me up. I graduated. I got out of that class that year. But that was for me the beginning of drawing. And I felt good because people would come over and look and say, "God, Malaquias, that's really good." And so when people would say, "Oh yeah, you're going to be another Michelangelo, you're going to be," you know, now I could say, "Yeah, maybe." But that was when I started to really get interested in doing artwork. And the other thing that happened there is, has nothing to do with art, but it has to do with some self-esteem. I came in one morning and across the blackboard, the name Malaquias was written in big letters. And my heart just sort of skipped a beat when I looked at it, and I said, "Gee, I wonder, why do they have my name up there?" And I thought about it, and I sat down with a sense of real terrible feeling in my stomach. And then class got going, and the teacher came up to me, and she whispered, put her arm around me and whispered in my ear, "You know, Malaquias, I'm going to do something. Change your name a little bit, but people won't make fun of you. And people won't make fun of because they can't pronounce it." Well, all the students could pronounce my name. You know, the teachers had a hard time sometimes. But anyway, she said, "This is what I'm going to do." And she took an eraser, big erasers, and went up to the blackboard. And she didn't tell the class anything. She just went up, and from M-A-L-A, Malaquias went on. From that second A, she just erased everything. So the only thing that was left up there was Mal. So she said, "Now, we're going to call you Mal. That way there won't be any problem." And I thought, well, Mal, that's not bad. It's like Bob, like Bob, 3 letters, Jim, J-I-M, Mal, M-A-L. But when I got home, my mother, of course, was very disappointed. "Ma, have you been acting up?" But I stayed with that name until, I think it changed when I got into the military. I had to, because everybody knew me as Mel. And in there was actually papers and forms that I had to sign. So my name went back to Mel. So now when somebody calls me Mel, they're from way back. So I don't know if that's what it was.
Any other questions?
Did I miss it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Xochitl touched on this, but I like the panelists to talk about how they're using their art, how they used it in the past, how they're using it now, because I know that you are, to empower future generations and young people. And Andrés, I want you to start, because I want you to talk about what we did in the centro. I mean, we worked with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, so how do you empower 3, 4, and 5-year-olds?
Let me repeat the question. She's asking how the panelists use art to empower the community, and she'd like Andrés to empower children.
Was in 73 that we started working, Connie, myself, for other people. But anyway, it was a shelter center, preschool program, kindergarten, etc., after school program. But in one section, I remember that we had, or I made this big ass tortilla press. And they were working with, they were using Play-Doh, making little tortillas, whatever. One time they almost break my hand because they allowed the whole thing to fall in my hands. But there was another group of kids playing with Play-Doh and putting big chunks of Play-Doh and then putting paint on it. Somebody grab a paper, put the paper on top of the Play-Doh, and then press it down and pull out a print. So at that point, it became the printmaking area of Centro Infantil de la Raza. And then from the tortilla press, we had one of those rollers to clean
The old washing machine.
for the washing machine. There you are. Yeah.
The
Okay.
ringer washing?
It was either for the washing machine or for those things to clean the floor, like for a mop ringer, one of those things. Anyway, we started using not only the Play-Doh, but we were using meat trays. Those meat trays made out of styrofoam and a pencil, and making marks or pictures out of that, and then we started using real printmakers ink, water-based, of course. And this is another sense of another way of inspiring young people to become artists, printmakers in this case. What else?
And you took them to Comejas. I mean, if you made a link with the community.
She said you took them to Comejas?
I did.
Okay.
Something. But from Comejas, the foundation, the organizing of Centro Infantil, we had a couple of members. One member, there was a mother, Ana Rojas. And I was working in a childcare center before in 70, 71, I don't remember. And I met a woman that was trying to organize, or that was organizing actually a bilingual program for young kids. And I was invited to a few meetings where La Familia Tovar, the Tovar family, Raúl and Mercedes Tovar, Jesucito Manriquez, and there was a teacher there also, Jorge Lerma, Berta Canton, ¿quién más? Carolina Juarez came a couple of times. There was and you were there? No, you were a kid. You were part of the, you were one of the students of Centro Infantil. So this, in a sense, is the way that I remember that we were participants in that part of the Fruitvale area.
Mariano?
Just want to make a quick statement. Leslie, I really appreciate your commentary. I can feel your energy and your enthusiasm, and just like all the other artists, but yours is, it's new, and por favor, keep it up, man, because it's very inspiring. And then I have two questions. One, you don't have to answer right now, but I do want an answer, Malaquias, is your mother's name, not right now. And then for everyone, or someone, I remember when we asked you, any of you, to make a poster to announce or publicize an event. You did, and you never charged, and thank you for that. But then we took it to either Inkworks or another print shop to get it reproduced so we can, publicize. And they would say, well, we have to put, it's not union, there's not a union label on it, so we have to charge you a little bit more and put the union bug on it. So we said, well, but you didn't put any labor into this poster. It was Malaquias, it was Xochitl, it was Andrés. So we brought it back, and then you guys, said, well, we're just going to put labor donated at the bottom. And so that took care of that part of it. And then, you know, eventually they accepted that. I just wanted to know, because of the influence of United Farm Workers and the labor movement back then, you know, when did you start sort of, politicizing that part of your labor as being something that they had to be, honored and respected and recognized as a labor of love that you donated? Thank you.
And there was a printer, Inkworks, that did a lot of time free work, but they also had to put down, because they were a labor, they had to put labor donated on theirs, which was fine with for me. But I myself never put labor donated. You know, it wasn't never my own thing that I did. I was lucky that I had another job where I could I was able to make a living to raise my family. That allowed me to give that work away. And it was done with a lot of pleasure. And I used to just love the fact that I could do that. And then somebody said, well, someday you'll have a big exhibition at some museum and you'll get rich. And I didn't know I didn't get rich. I didn't know I was going to have to wait till I was 85 before having to show at a museum. So.
And Malaquias, your mother's name, please.
What's that?
Your mother's name.
What's your mother's name?
Lucia. Lucia.
Thank you.
By the way, Malaquias, we have some conflict with the Oakland Museum, as I remember. Yeah. We were boycotting it. There was an exhibit they have an exhibit of like Yuppies or Yuppies, whatever, Yippies. The different communities in Oakland. But the Chicano community, what they have for the Chicano community was an enclosed thingy where there was like a clay image of a cholo with beer thrown all around there. Do you remember that one? I'm not sure, but I remember we got in the museum.
Yeah, and then eventually the protests were heard. Eventually it was taken to the basement and eliminated from the exhibits because the community raised concern.
Yeah.
But it was a negative connotation of Chicano.
Yeah.
I think Lisa remembers this, so she might want to answer, then Andrés.
Yeah, the way I understand it is that from that protest, it was a poor
Lisa,
representation.
can you hear her in the back? Oh, could you stand up and let people know?
Sure, that from that protest as a poor representation of the Chicano community,
The Latino Advisory Council was formed for the Oakland Museum of California. And then also the Dia de los Muertos Committee. And it began a multi-decade relationship, you could say as equals to the table with the staff. And they have continued to meet with us. And we continue to have our foot in the door. Many of us here have served on Oakland Museum's Dia de los Muertos Committee and on their, myself and in the back, Judy and others have been on the Latino Advisory Council for the purpose of keeping our representation true and honest to the Chicano community. I'm really grateful that you guys did good art.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, let's follow. Gonna get to you, Andrés, about the museum. Xochitl has a
Another
follow-up.
thing with the Oakland Museum, my dad and my father Salah and I were trying to get a show over there, in the museum. And they said, well, come on down, we'll talk to you. And we started talking and stuff like that. And it seemed like we were gonna get a show there, but then, and this was in May, in the month of May, like for Cinco de Mayo, trying to get cultural in there. But they said, well, we're gonna talk about it further and all that. We didn't hear from them. Then it turned out that Charles Schultz got a show in there in our, where we were supposed to exhibit. Yeah, the guy from Peanuts, you know. So he got in there and we did. So that shows you right there, you know.
You never did get your exhibit?
No. we
Not
never
yet,
did.
you gotta work on that.
Not yet.
We never did.
That Sala has
Well,
never-
my father's work, some of his work is in the new show, the show they have there right now. About 3 of his pieces are in there as posters, so that's as far as we got. Yeah.
Andrés.
I've heard it said that artwork, the work that you, Malaquias, and the rest of you did during that period had a lot to do with propelling the Chicano movement forwards, making turning the Chicano movement into what it was through, you know, identity, recognizing history, etc. Do you think that's true, number one? And two, if that's the power of art, do you think that, Leslie, today art can be used to propel movements forward, to help develop movements to deal with issues today?
Yes, I mean, we've seen the terrible things that happen and, you know, the George Floyd and kind of what that kind of blew out, but we've seen it on the streets, we've seen it on the walls. It literally started the next phase of that, you know what I mean? It highlighted protest art and it took it to the streets and kept that flame super lit because of the art and the momentum and the community that it was building in creating that art. It wasn't just one person in their room at home doing it. It was multiple people, hundreds and thousands of people that were just like coming out like, well, I've never painted in my life, but I can feel this in, and really that's kind of what sparked that next phase of the work that you guys, you know, helped spark. Sorry, I jumped the gun.
On the question of the Chicano art propelled the Chicano movement forward, I think it kept it going. I think there was different camps. The Sacramento group were very pro-worker, pro-Chicano, pro-Mexican American, and sometimes. But every time that some of us would go to visit, they would say, "Here comes the third worlders." So there was a different sense that to them, art depicting Chicano, Mexicanos, indigenous art, that was very important at that time. But there was something wrong with our work, because everything, it had to address something. And Malaquias' work always had to talk about this and this and this. And, but it wasn't true. I did a lot of work for the farm worker struggle, but I also did work for the people that were struggling in Central America, because that was our struggle also. And it was, the artwork was to make the people understand that the struggle that we fight here is the same struggle that's taking place and is caused by the same people. The American capitalists, they're the ones who create the madres in Central America and in Africa and those countries. And by showing that in our work, they start to understand it. And it's nice, people come and ask you a question, why is this, what does this have to do with, and then you can sit and talk to them and tell them this is why. And so yeah, I think it kept it going. The Chicano movement kept the, maybe not just the Mexican American, but it was the Chicano people who had that in mind, used to support their feelings and their struggle that was taking place. I know I did. It was just a great feeling to be able to get up in the morning and know you're going to go and struggle. Not just with the squeegee and all that, struggle with the idea of trying to get across to people that we have a place in this country. And that the farm worker, that my mother, I mean, I never felt so good when I found out that my mother contributed to the wealth of this country as a farm worker, as a grape picker. I mean, to me, she was a campesina, but now I realized, gosh, she's someone that contributes to this wealth. So that had to be known. That had to be somehow made them understand que no más eran trabajadores, but they were somebody that contributed to the richness of this country. And that awakens their consciousness to what I thought was very important.
We may have time for one more question, or we can wrap it up. And again, say thank you to our panelists, and thank you all for coming. You're welcome. This has been, well, for me, a very enjoyable and informative panel, and thank you so much.